might we have to then go to the 22nd of May to pass the legislation to implement this agreement. That's a formality, and that's got to happen now because the EU has already changed the date in the treaty. Well, after nearly 2 years of negotiations and there being no agreement in Parliament on any way forward, particularly with regard to the Prime Minister's withdrawal agreement, MPs have decided to take control, as they're saying, of the order paper, the agenda for tomorrow, Wednesday, in Parliament, where they will be beginning to debate a number of options which potentially MPs might be able to agree upon and try and find a majority to go forward as a way of going back to the EU and saying there is a majority for X in Parliament, and we think that if you agree with us on this, then we can get this through Parliament and find a way forward out of this blockage. Well, tomorrow, first of all, on Wednesday, MPs will start debating and looking at the various options, and they will be voting on this, but not voting as they normally do. They will have slips of paper where they will indicate what are their preferred options. I doubt there will be any conclusion on this tomorrow, and it's very likely that MPs will have another go at this on Monday as a way of trying to refine where there might be any agreement. I mean, one thing we have to bear in mind, it's taken 2 years to get to this point, and we can't agree. MPs aren't going to sort it out in 2 days. Well, the first thing I think we have to remember is whatever happens in there tomorrow, it doesn't matter if the EU don't like it. So if the EU are not prepared to negotiate on what MPs are proposing, it doesn't work. So there has to be something which the EU is going to buy into. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is with the 12th of April deadline, if she can get her deal through by the end of this week, and I think the EU have required that the vote takes place this week, then we will have the 22nd of May as the deadline to get the legislation through, the necessary legislation through so we can leave. The 12th of April deadline is if we don't get a deal this week. At that point, we just run into another cliff edge. It could be a bit premature to write it off. There is a suggestion now that those who have been opposing her deal, particularly on the ERG side of the party, are looking at this and saying it's either no deal, sorry, either her deal or no Brexit. And that, I think, is now going to focus minds. And it might be that we see over the coming days some of those who have been opposing her deal now decide to back it as a way of getting Brexit. The way in which this works, this has only been tried a couple of times, most recently in trying to reform the House of Lords. Firstly, MPs at that occasion didn't agree, and unless MPs decide to compromise, I think we're going to have the same position again if MPs remain entrenched in where they want. However, if they do agree something and they go back to the Prime Minister and say, what we want from you is to take forward a customs union and single market membership back to the EU as our deal, as the deal, I think that will be very difficult for the Prime Minister to do. Indeed, on any votes that are taken, she will not be bound by them. What will need to happen is the MPs need to turn this into legislation, into laws, which then bind the Prime Minister. However, I think at that stage the Prime Minister would probably feel humiliated being told by MPs what to do, particularly if it crosses her red lines of a customs union single market. And I think at that stage we would probably be heading towards a general election.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. Oh, hang on.
Have you got loads?
Here for a little while.
We'll never get in. Yes, but we'll get. Yes, but
let's have some photos together for these guys, right?